The Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and perhaps no sport, in the major ones anyway, change so much from the regular season to the postseason. And so the always interesting start to the playoffs commenced on Saturday, and we got a nice reminder right off the top. Let's break it down. We'll start with the Leafs against the Ottawa Senators, and Toronto making a statement in Game 1 against Ottawa. Say whatever you want about how this game went, about reasons X, Y, and Z for what happened. 6 goals is still 6 goals. And I'm sure we could go back and look at playoff games past for the Leafs and playoff performances past for the Leafs where they didn't get 6 goals in 2 or 3 or 4 games. That has been the Achilles heel for this Leafs team, is that when the lights are brightest and everything starts to mean the most, this is a team that just grabs the sticks a little bit tighter and has a little bit more of a problem as it goes along. So really, I think really impressive they were able to do that in this game. And going 3 for 6 on the power play is what I think a lot of people are going to point at. Again, though, the power play has been a big struggle for the Leafs at playoff time before. So from a Leaf standpoint, I think you have to take the positives here. You can butt this thing all the way, but there have been a lot of times where they wouldn't even take advantage of what they had to take advantage of. So progress for the Toronto Maple Leafs. On the Ottawa side, you're a little worried about Ullmark. He was not sharp enough there for them to win this series. He needs to be a steal a game or two guy in this series for them to have a hope. But I'm not going to say he cost them, because I think just overall they just weren't as good as Ottawa. But I do think that Ullmark, they are going to need him to be spectacular in this series, and he simply wasn't that. But overall, this was a full learning experience for the Ottawa Senators in Game 1. This was the playoff debut for a lot of their guys, and they faced a team that was ready to go. And I'm not going to say they weren't, but they weren't as ready as the Leafs were going into Game 1. So adjustments now can be made for Ottawa going into the second one. But this was a bit of a reminder, and I think this was the main reminder, is that the first couple of days of the playoffs are always a little crazy when it comes to penalty calls, because the refs are still in regular season penalty call mode, and the players are now amped up for the playoffs. So they're running in and they are taking extra shots that they wouldn't dream of in the regular season. But we got our extra legs under us, and that means crash, bang, boom. And the referees are still in, well, you can't do that. And so a lot of penalties get called the first weekend, even the first week of the playoffs. So it's something to remember. Put this in the brain for next year. Teams that have good power plays. A lot of times we talk about this, right? And talked about it with Vegas, and we'll bring that up in a little bit here. But talked about them on the radio. Their penalty kill has struggled at times this season. And one of the things that a lot of people were talking about, including me, was okay, you don't have to kill as many penalties in the playoffs. And that is true as we go along. It is not true for the first few games of this. And so it is dumb that this is an adjustment you kind of have to make. But when you are looking at these games and kind of handicapping them, I do think you have to add an extra power play goal or two in your assumptions for these games because of how they end up being called. Eventually it does level off into playoff everything, and then it's just wild and crazy. But that generally happens around the first overtime game, is that eventually they let it all go, and then you just kind of change what normal is. But that's just anecdotal. Anyway, the Winnipeg Jets, the other Canadian team in action over the weekend, they survive another high-scoring playoff game. And obviously, the story coming out of this is going to be Connor Hellebuyck. I think I saw a note that he has the longest stretch of 3+ goals allowed in the history of playoff hockey or something like that, or at least the last little while. I would assume the last little while, because a lot of high-scoring games in postseasons and whatnot. But anyway, I do find it tough to put all the blame on him for this one. The first goal, it's a failed clearing attempt. You have Iafallo and Lowry overcommitting at the blue line. A nice play by Fowler holds it in and gets it past him. And now all of a sudden, what was already a 5-on-4 is now basically a 4-on-2 down at the net. And the puck ends up with Thomas, who is one of the last people you want to have in that situation with the puck, and he fires it in. So while you would love a save in that spot, it's still not an ideal circumstance for him. The second goal, it is a brutal turnover by Schenn, who is trying to go skate to stick, and he did. It was just the wrong stick, and Sundqvist scores to give them a second goal. And then the third one, Sundqvist again is all over the vision of Connor Hellebuyck, and it's a perfect shot by Kyrou. And so, while you can individually on each one be like, well, it's not all on him there, and well, it's not all on him there, and well, it's not all on him there, at some point, he's getting paid to stop at least one of those, right? Like, and so not every high danger chance has to go in. Not every power play chance has to go in. At some point, if this team is going to get ultimately where they need to get to, he is going to have to be the one that makes some saves that you are not expected to make. And that has become, I think, a bit of an issue for him when it comes to playoff time. He has lost a lot of the benefit of the doubt. Now, I do think getting the matchup of St. Louis, while you like a lot of the offensive pieces that they have, with Kyrou, Tomic, Buchnevich can be a problem. Sundqvist is built for this time of year. And Snuggerud feels like he's going to be a guy. Overall, they don't really have the firepower that you were dealing with the Colorado last year. So maybe you're able to survive and just kind of reset in this a little bit, but that would be a bit concerning from a Winnipeg Jets standpoint, seeing what happened there in game one. But on the upside, the top line was dynamite. Scheifele, Connor, Iafallo, all were just excellent. Scheifele's passing was on full display. I constantly forget how good this guy is at passing the puck around. He was excellent. Connor has that big shot, and Iafallo was great around the net. Defensively, 5-on-5, they didn't give up a ton. A few too many turnovers, for sure, but still, overall, I think they played okay, at least defensively, for an 8-goal hockey game. But this is a really big win for them. After the playoff disappointment last year, to go out and put 5 in, even though one's an empty netter, to put 5 in on night one and survive not the best night from your goalie, that's a real nice vote of confidence there. On the blue side, they battled, but they fell short. Again, some big goals. Most of that damage is on the power play. 5-on-5, this team is going to have to create a little bit more of a threat as this series is going on. They held on as much as they could defensively, but that line just kind of toyed with them all night. They lost a few too many board battles, which led to a few more opportunities for Winnipeg, which ended up with the puck in the back of their net. Bennington's rebound control was a bit of an issue in this one too. There was a lot of big rebound chances that let the Jets keep up some zone time, especially early in this game, and start to establish a bit of a rhythm for themselves offensively. And that I think is a bit of a concern for the Blues. But we have seen recently in big moments that Bennington can, find his sea legs after a rough game or two. You just saw the graphic if you're watching, but it would really help me out if you could share a link to the stream, whether it is Twitch, Kick, or where you're watching on YouTube. I would really appreciate it if you were share the stream, or if you're watching after, share this video and help kind of build up these numbers. Really happy with the stuff that we've been doing here lately. Would just like more people to be seeing it, is all. The Colorado Avalanche put on a show with some help. Some wild bounces go their way on the first 2 goals. The first one, Lehkonen, I agree with and understand why it was allowed. I will just say, as someone who wants to, in MMA, enforce every rule ever, and hey, no more warning, no warnings. Your last warning is when we talk to you in the back, and if you kick a guy low, that's on you. I don't care if it was a mistake, it still is kicking him low. I would listen to an argument saying that the rule isn't he absolutely meant to have a distinct kicking motion. It is just a distinct kicking motion. And that's what that was. Now, it's because he's getting shit whipped to the ground and his leg happened to hit the puck. And it's from a distance away. None of it is in the spirit of the rule. It's from long enough out that you're not worried about him kicking the puck and it scratching or the skate blade catching someone and it becomes a traumatic event. You're not worried about that, and it is not an intentional thing at all, but it is still a kicking motion that was distinct. And so if that's the rule, I would listen to an argument that would say that should be called, but it would be ridiculous to overturn that one, ultimately, I think. But the speed and depth on display for Colorado, it felt like as that game went on, they really did own the puck a lot, and when that happens, you are going to get those breaks. And so, while a couple of the bounces go their way, the weird one off of Lehkonen, and then McKinnon just tries to shoot one through a defender, it deflects off the pants and floats in over Ottinger, those are going to happen when you have the puck more, and that's what Colorado did in this game. So I think they kind of earned their own luck there. Defensively, I do think they gave up a few too many really good looks, and Blackwood was fantastic and really, really sharp. I do think the defense is going to have to tighten up a little bit, but you love how active they are on the offensive side. Manson on that kind of 4-on-2 rush, a perfect pass, and it's Taves rushing to the front of the goal, putting it in. They just, even with a bunch of new guys in the lineup, they have this chemistry with their high-level players that really shines through at this time of year. So an impressive performance from Colorado in Game 1, although not one without flaw. For the Dallas Stars, again, a little bit unlucky, but if you want puck luck, you need to have the puck first, and I just didn't think they had that enough. Now, they did have a few very good looks at Mackenzie Blackwood at various different times in this game and just weren't able to kind of break it through. You do give up too much zone time, I think. And Ottinger, even though you can't really blame him on these goals, I do think he was also a little bit shaky in this game. He was not his regular sharp self. So just an overall tightening up of things for the Dallas Stars needed for this second game. Staying out west, the Vegas Golden Knights just kind of survive and advance into game number 2. This series might be a bit of a grind, and I do think that favors Vegas here. Minnesota's defense, you think of them as like the trap team, the slow everything down team, and all of that. That's not this group anymore. And so I do think Vegas, having this be a bit more of a low event game, it does benefit them a little bit. They have some concerns about secondary scoring. And if this turns into a bit of a track meet, as crazy as it is when you have Eichel, I don't know if they can keep up as well if this turns into a bit more of the Minnesota style of game that they would want. And so I do think while Vegas initially was built on speed and skill, I do think kind of slowing this one down a little bit helps them out when you are trying to hope for some of that secondary scoring. And then eventually Howden breaks through with a couple of goals, albeit one into an empty net. So Vegas able to kind of dictate the pace for themselves and come away with a victory in game 1. The last one we are going to break down here today on, again, a bit of a longer stream for y'all. The Carolina Hurricanes really do put on a show against the New Jersey Devils. You force Markstrom to step up, make 44 saves. You still put 4 in past him. Stankoven with a couple. If you're getting the secondary scoring like that, this series is going to be over pretty quickly. And so this was Carolina really reminding people that they are a really good hockey team and putting it all together here. The Devils, being a shorthanded group, really did show, but Carolina, this was a statement that this is a team that is being overlooked right now in the Stanley Cup Playoffs. So it is a busy schedule tonight when you are looking at the National Hockey League. I kind of like how they do it a little bit more than the NBA, where everything's a little bit more spaced out. It is a bit trickier to follow when it's 4 games a night, but Montreal and Washington get the thing going tonight in game 1. The Jets look to take a 2-0 lead on the Blues in game 2. Same thing goes for Colorado. Man, huge game for Dallas on home ice. They need that one against the Avs coming up at 7:30 Mountain Time tonight. And then Edmonton and LA start their series at 8.